everyone has had a really good day. This is Jamarl Thomas. I am the host of the Progressive Soapbox, which is where you are. I want to do this video just once and load it. If this video turns out horribly, I will get rid of this video and pretend that this video doesn't exist. So you may see something kind of like a firefly in the night. But nevertheless, let's do the news. I want to talk about something that has been gaining a lot of steam. There is a foolhardy strategy afoot that's been picked up by elements of the left. And oddly enough, these are elements of the left that on many other issues I actually agree with. Ocasio-Cortez, Ilhan Omar, Rashida Tlaib, and I want to put an exclamation point on Rashida Tlaib, and I'll come back to her in a moment. But the emphasis that's being put on this from the standpoint of the elements of the left have been picked up by elements of the center that is running in the Democratic primaries for pandering reasons. Let's call it the desperate strategy in this point to try to get any energy into the campaign. In being picked up by elements of the center on this point, I'm sorry, the dog is barking. And it's extraordinarily intrusive. Usually my wife tries to help with that stuff, but apparently she's like, just said, screw it. I'm doing something else today. Look, the problem is this. This has been picked up by elements of the left. And this has also been picked up by elements like Elizabeth Warren. And if I'm not mistaken, Kamala Harris has even talked about this. Meaning, the elements of the left that the center has been kind of aping in order to get through the primaries. There's no reason to believe that it would also exclude this, which it hasn't. So the fact that people like AOC and Ilhan and Rashida Tlaib have been screaming about this notion of impeachment, it was just a matter of time before the question gets asked to the people who are running in the Democratic primaries. There are some people who don't want to talk about this because those people have a stable campaign in the way they want to run their campaign. Others, who've been flailing and trying to find any level of energy, have jumped on board to this. I want to go back to Rashida Tlaib for a moment. Before she was even elected, or immediately after she was elected, I don't think she had been sworn in yet, she was caught saying this.
People love you and you win. Woo! And when your son looks at you and says, Mama, look, you won, bullies don't win. And I said, baby, they don't. Because we're going to go in there, we're going to impeach the motherfucker.
I've said before that there's something about this language that I like, but I don't like it in a political way. It's an odd thing that I feel about this language. But that said, I don't even think she had been sworn in yet. And she is out here saying, I'm going to impeach the motherfucker. Who needs a trial? Who needs an investigation? She already knows. Which is kind of the problem, right? This comes across as overtly politically motivated to go after Donald Trump, especially when the Mueller report says something that's somewhat different than what these guys are saying. And by the way, not just saying something different than what these guys are saying. On the night of April 18th, I believe it was April 18th, the thing that you saw and that everybody saw exploding in the sky. Look at that. That bright light exploding in the sky. You know what that is? That's the Mueller report shooting down every notion of the conspiracy theory that we've been engulfed in for 3 years. You all said that Trump colluded with the Russian government in order to either hack or to win the election. And that was found to be entirely false. But it's as if you're reading the report in a way that is contrary to actual reality. And you've taken the report and said, now we have what we're going to use in order to impeach this president. Obstruction. Obstruction of what? Obstruction of justice. What justice? He cleared him of anything, meaning any wrongdoing on this very specific point of collusion. Now, you want to say he's corrupt. You want to say that he didn't like the fact and bitched about, having to go through this witch hunt. Fair enough. But let's acknowledge first that there was no collusion between Trump and the Russian government. Let's acknowledge that. Because the moment that we acknowledge that, and then you come behind me and say, but we're going to go after him anyway, then there's a problem. there's a problem. You're running a plan that is contrary to reality itself. And by the way, there were real world consequences to this. Meaning, this conspiracy theory that has gone after Donald Trump for the last 3 years, engulfing this country into this notion that the president of the United States was somehow being controlled by a foreign power, that conspiracy theory had real world consequences. When Donald Trump got into office, he was talking about being more conciliatory towards Russia and Vladimir Putin. Take a look at this. There's parts of the Mueller report that they may not necessarily go into on mainstream media. Former NSA Director Mike Rogers. So listen to this. On March 26, 2017, the day after the president called Coates is DNI director, the president called NSA Director Admiral Michael Rogers. The president expressed frustration with the Russia investigation, saying it made relations with Russia difficult. Meaning Donald Trump came in office wanting to do certain things. He wanted to be conciliatory towards Russia. He wanted to have a détente. He wanted to bring down the hysteria that had taken hold in the country, particularly with regards to 90% of the nuclear weapons on this planet are between our two countries. He got into office with the express interest in bringing down frustrations and having some level of détente. Here's another one. Right here, DNI Director, Coates. On Saturday, March 25, 2017, 3 days after the meeting in the Oval Office, the president called Coates and again complained about the Russia investigation, saying the words to the effect of, "I can't do anything with Russia. There are things I'd like to do with Russia, with trade, with ISIS. They're all over me with this." Now, understand, everything that Donald Trump was doing from the context of Russia was looked at through a lens of Donald Trump is working with Vladimir Putin for some ends. But based on what you know now, this indeed was not real. There was no collusion between Donald Trump and Vladimir Putin or the Russian government. Mueller and his, the very aggressive detectives have gone through all sorts of this. There was no collusion. Meaning he actually did want to do things that were conciliatory towards Russia, things that lefties, ideally, people like AOC would want him to do in that office. Détente. But because of a witch hunt, because of an investigation that was going after him, and because of this hysteria, this, you can say conspiracy theory that has engulfed mainstream media for the last 3 years, anything and everything that he wanted to do was looked at through a lens that was fundamentally not real. Unreality, however, having real world consequences on the policies that Donald Trump was enacting in that office, or that he was even allowed to enact in that office. And that was against progressive policies. Meaning you could be fundamentally against all sorts of things that Donald Trump is for. But if it's something that you're for, just because he's for it, who gives a shit? If Donald Trump wants to be more conciliatory towards Russia, I want him to be more conciliatory. I want the tensions to be brought down. So I don't particularly care that it's Trump that's doing it. The progressive position is to not care that it's Trump that's doing it. The progressive position, if you want to call it a progressive position, is détente. The thing that this hysteria, this conspiracy theory was preventing. Elizabeth Warren has now added her voice to this. Now, you must understand that part of the reason that Elizabeth Warren would add her voice to something like this was because Elizabeth Warren has no energy in her presidential campaign at all. Now, she came out with a school loan thing, but I would like to make the point that Elizabeth Warren is somewhat of a pander bear. She panders to all sorts of the political electorate, to whatever she needs to. If she wants to be, I want to give her your school debt, fine, I give her your school debt. If it's, I need to support Standing Rock after Obama takes a position on it, then I will support it after Obama takes a position. Yes, I will do campaign finance now, but after the primary is over with, not so much. And I'm not going to support Bernie Sanders. Because if Hillary Clinton loses, or if Hillary Clinton wins, she's going to punish me for that. And then you get into this weird position of saying, yes, they rigged it. No, they didn't rig it. Pander bear, Elizabeth Warren, weather vane. She's now jumped on board. She was on board for reparations because, again, energy. She's looking for any sort of energy to jazz up her campaign. And now she's on board for this thing of impeachment of Donald Trump, saying that this is not for political reasons. But this is kind of the problem, right? If you have to continuously tell me that it's not for political reasons, then it probably is for political reasons. This will not come of good ends. You have two problems, or at the very least, I have two key problems with this. And by the way, when Bernie Sanders was asked questions on reparations, listen to his answer. He clammed up. He didn't want to talk about this at all. But understand why he didn't want to talk about this. Because he doesn't have to talk about this. Well, all of the weaknesses that are associated with Donald Trump, with all of the things that avail Donald Trump that you can hit him on, impeachment, on unreality, is not the thing that you want to go by. And I'm sorry, if you're using the Mueller report for obstruction of something that didn't exist, it's not justice at that point. Donald Trump thought it was a witch hunt. He had good reasons for thinking it was a witch hunt because it came out of whole cloth. So it wasn't him doing something to protect himself, in this case, because there was nothing to protect. It didn't exist. He thought you were going after him. And yeah, it made all the sense in the world that he might thought you were going after him because you were going after him. You were trying to take down the president in ways that went beyond this idea of getting him in the ballot box. And you're doing it again. You're using a conspiracy theory as a pretext to try to take down the president of the United States. And here's your problem. In France, 80% of the country, 70%, is backing the Yellow Vest movement. 50% of this country believes that what you're doing is a witch hunt. Do you understand the difference in those things? They are burning shit down and still get 70% of the approval of the country itself. 50% of this country in the last poll thought that this was a witch hunt. So, it's not like you have the support of the entire public backing you on this. It comes across as if it's entirely political. I want to close it. But it comes across as entirely political. Let's hear Sanders for the moment. I don't want to keep this one too long because I want it to be to the point. But Sanders clams up, and he should clam up. He wants to talk about all the ways Trump has failed. He wants to talk about all the things Trump has lied about. And he wants to have a campaign that beats Trump just on basic politics. Because that's all you need. You don't need this other stuff, the conspiracy theory stuff. You just need the basic politics. It's just the other people in the race that is trying to push him to a position on this because they realize that this is his weak point. He doesn't need to go here. It's divisive. And it creates a problem when you're trying to run in the main election itself. Sanders has a message that can pull Trump voters. Do you honestly believe that any Trump voter is going to deal with the Democratic Party after they try to impeach the president of the United States on some nonsense? On some utter nonsense. Or at the very least, that was found to be nonsense. So, this is Sanders.
To see that Donald Trump is not reelected president. And I intend to do everything I can to
in the Mueller report, they would be arrested and put in jail. And she's obviously referencing this president. Do you agree that it is time for impeachment proceedings, as she says?
Well, what I agree is that we have the most dangerous president in the modern history of this country, somebody who's a pathological liar, somebody who the Mueller report said basically left the question open, which the Congress has got to explore, as whether or not he obstructed justice, a very serious crime. So what my view is twofold. I think, first, it goes without saying that the Congress has got to take a hard look at that, do a hard investigation and subpoena the people who were mentioned in that report and bring them forward. So to get to the truth, did Trump actually obstruct justice? But here is my concern. At the end of the day, what is most important to me is to see that Donald Trump is not reelected president. And I intend to do everything I can to make sure that doesn't happen. But if, and this is an if for the next year and a half, going right into the heart of the election, all that the Congress is talking about is impeaching Trump and Trump and Mueller, And we're not talking about health care. We're not talking about raising the minimum wage to a living wage. We're not talking about combating climate change. We're not talking about sexism and racism and homophobia and all of the issues that concern ordinary Americans. What I worry about is that works to Trump's advantage.
And he's right, by the way. Of course it works to Trump's advantage. You've said that I was working with a foreign power for the last 3 years, a conspiracy theory that in and of itself should be investigated on how on earth did a conspiracy theory propagate the American media and the political space to the degree that it did. So you having this conversation about impeachment on something that was found to be ruled not true is a little bit bizarre. Do I want to have a conversation on unreality, or do I want to talk about the things that Trump has failed on? I want to talk about the reality of things, the things that Trump has failed on. Look, two main points, and I'll end this, because like I said, I don't want it to go too long. Two problems. And if, Ocasio-Cortez or any of these guys get their hands on this video, two problems with this. One is political, one is reality. The political one is going to seem extraordinarily craven, but regardless, if you're trying to get stuff done, politics is politics. But the second one is the one that needs to be meditated on. Let's say it that way. In a political sense, from a political standpoint, you have a caucus, or at the very least, it comes across as almost a caucus now. Sanders, the standard bearer, for the most part, Warren, Tlaib, these guys are Bernie-crats. These people got into the political space because Sanders called for people to get into the political space. Fair enough. Your standard bearer, the guy who's out there running for the presidency of the United States, the guy who will be pushing for the policies that you want, that you've stated out there objectively that you want, that guy is looking at this idea of impeachment and saying, whoa, that should give you pause. That should give you extraordinary pause. If the guy who's our standard bearer is not pushing for the impeachment, why is he not pushing for the impeachment? Because it weakens his position in the election. Who are you in politics for? I took it as you were in politics to get things done. And if you're in politics to get things done, then the guy who's trying to lead the charge, who's trying to get in office to enact the policies that you're doing, maybe you need to pay attention to what he's doing and to some degree take his lead. Just saying. Yeah, that's craven, but it is what it is. If the goal is to get things done, then yeah, you pay attention to the person who's trying to push for what you want to get past. The secondary point, and the point that probably takes more that's more prevalent to me, reality. Reality. Grim, unflinching reality. Fact of the matter is, you guys said something that was fundamentally untrue, and the media went with it. Trump was colluding with the Russian government and was somehow being controlled by Putin. You guys came up with a political point of view. And Rashida Tlaib, before Donald Trump, before Mueller report even came out, she understood what she wanted to do. And I would put to you that all of you understood what you wanted to do. You thought it was an opportunity to get Donald Trump out of office. And you wanted to do it in a way that was beyond the ballot box. And right now, as opposed to dealing with the reality of events that he didn't collude with Russia, that notion was shot down in broad daylight in front of the rest of the country, that half of the country thinks that what you're doing is a witch hunt, you still press on. Elizabeth Warren is pressing on because, again, pander bear. This is overtly political. But she's not picking up these cues from nobody. She's picking up these cues from the left. Just like there are other cues that these guys are picking up from the left that they're trying to cover themselves in. But this, of all of them, is probably the most foolhardy. What does Nancy Pelosi do? Nancy Pelosi is being hit by two sides. Elizabeth Warren's, I think the Kamala Harris's of the world, and Ocasio, Ilhan, meaning this kind of the lefty fringe bunch of the party. What does Pelosi do? I guarantee you Pelosi does not want to impeach Donald Trump. She can talk about it all she wants. She does not want to do it. The question is, does Pelosi have the strength to say no to, again, what I consider to be a foolhardy strategy? I'll end this here. here, but these guys have been pushing for impeachment. And it's like, you realize that Mike Pence is the guy who's standing behind all of the impeachment stuff. Do you really want Mike Pence to take that office? Kills for a living. It's official. JT is earning at the HA. He's now a Trump apologist. On another note, I saw the climate report you shared on Twitter. I'm starting to lean with Guy McPherson and say we won't be able to make the 2020 election. Guy McPherson, he is a morbid guy, right? But it's a little worrying, man. And that's to put it mildly. That's to put it mildly. And I'm not turning into HA. I'm not turning into a Trump apologist. My basic point is this. And you may say I'm motivated just by the person who I'm supporting in this race, meaning Sanders. Fair enough. I don't need these theatrics. They're unnecessary to what needs to be done. The objective in this is to take Donald Trump out of his office. If the person like Sanders is running in this race, dealing with something that was proven to be false, doesn't help him in his cause. And some of the reports that was coming out during the polling, many of the people who would support Trump would support Sanders. Meaning Sanders has the ability to cross into Trump territory and pull those people. He cannot do that, however, if the Democratic Party is running a divisive campaign to impeach the President of the United States. It is not in my political interest at all to have this impeachment stuff to go on. So it's not me apologizing for Trump. It's me being aware of my political surroundings and where I stand on this stuff. It is not beneficial to me. Not just not beneficial to me. I don't think they make their case on something that was not shown to be true. So I'm just saying that's where I am on this. That's where I am. Sanders is running very fast. It's hard to run on you. Oh, that's wrong. That's wrong. That's wrong. You can't run on his knees to Hillary Clinton. That's messed up. Says Samuro, but they should use it to damage its political influence. But that's just it. I don't think it does damage its political influence. Like, look, if you come out and say Mueller is going to get to the bottom of whether or not Trump colluded with Russia, fair enough. Then Mueller's your guy. And Mueller comes out and Mueller says, look, definitively, categorically, empirically, there was no collusion. There was no association between Trump and the Russian government. We could find no such. We looked into all of these angles that people wanted. We could find no such thing. Now, they would make the point that he tried to obstruct, but it wasn't justice that he was trying to obstruct because there was no there to the original charge. So this is not me defending Trump, if that makes sense. This is just stating reality of what reality is. This is kind of my problem with this issue of the impeachment thing. The reality of it is that there was no there. And if you're running on a campaign to impeach the President of the United States, the entire public has seen the Mueller report. They know there's no there. They've automatically switched over to obstruction. But we need to acknowledge that there was no there. If you want to take Donald Trump down, take Donald Trump down on real things. And real things are things that he himself said that he was going to do, that he entirely failed on, and not just failed on, had no interest in doing. Those are the things that you hit him on. It is not in my political interest to do this. It is not in anybody's political interest to do this. But there are some desperate people who are running in the race who are going to use any and everything at their disposal. In this case, I think this is a desperate thing to do, and you're going to divide the country on this. Donald Trump won that last race. Sanders made the point that if the only thing we talk about is Donald Trump, we lose. And I think he's right, which is why he's trying to shy away from this. The politics of this does not work for him. The other ones are just desperate and trying to get anything they can. Also, I don't believe Elizabeth Warren could be Donald Trump. I'm just saying. Just saying. All right. I'm going to end this here. If you guys enjoy the content, Trudy's here. Where is Trudy? I didn't see Trudy. Emollients. There you go. Yes, even that. Like, even if you said, look, there's an emollients clause that Trump broke. But fair enough. Like, my issue here is not if Trump loses Don't misunderstand me. My issue here is not even if you catch Trump on some kind of crime. My issue here is if Trump get popped the moment that he get out of office because there are other charges against him. No issue with any of that stuff. My issue is with the very basic thing of using this to go after Trump. Also, understand what took place in the election and the distinction that these guys have been making. Hillary Clinton pays, and the DNC pays for a report of Christopher Steele, the dossier. Christopher Steele got his information from Moscow, supposedly. So the distinction that's being made here is, well, Hillary Clinton paid for hers, so that's okay. But Donald Trump was given his. And by the way, that didn't even take place. Just saying. If you're going to hit him on something that's real. Because you will be punished by the public for doing something that's not real. And your opportunities for making inroads with independents and Trump voters is going to end. I am telling you. Heed my warning on this. I'll end it here. If you guys enjoy the content, please feel free to share, like, subscribe. You can always support the PayPal or Patreon. Thanks, everyone.